From the world of AV programming control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, guess what? It's time for us to talk about, it's been 6 months, not years, 6 months since we've started this, and we get to celebrate a little bit.
It's crazy. I cannot believe it's been 6 months already when we just kind of got together and said, hey, let's try this. And it's been going and it's been fun. And I can't believe it's been 6 months.
I know. I reached out as we got past the 26th week that we've been doing this, and we both kind of dawned on us that it's time for us to reflect a little bit and see if what we're doing is working. That's up to our audience, honestly. But I've enjoyed getting to know you better and sharing stories. And sometimes when we talk here, we even go in a different direction than we expect when we pick a topic or when we're trying to pursue a different idea. I've learned a lot more about different ways that programming is approached, and I've learned, and it's opened my mind to some things. So I figured today we could discuss a little bit about what's worked and what we've learned, and also just reflect a little bit on our past 6 months.
Oh, no, that sounds great. I agree. I've learned so much from you. In fact, some of the stuff we talked about, especially like commenting in code and version controls and stuff, I've been trying to roll out myself. So it's been very helpful.
That's great. I'm glad. I think that's what this is all about too. In the beginning, when you and I got together, we talked a lot about community. I think one of the themes that comes up a lot is we don't want to be the programmer on an island. We've also talked about the different ways that programming can be approached, and also the way that there isn't one type of programmer. Those are some of the things that I learned. A programmer that's an in-house end user is different from an in-house integrator, different from a third party, different from a freelancer, and yet we're all considered programmers. But there are differences, and it's almost like looking at how do you look at other professions where there's specialists or people that have certain areas of focus. And I think also we've been able to gather some thoughts from our audience and been able to have a guest on and truly get to have some engagement, and hopefully that continues.
I agree. It kind of opened my eyes when we started doing this that there is these other folks out there. Like always knew there was people who programmed. I wasn't oblivious to that, but like in our conversations and the feedback we gotten from our listeners, it's like we're all going for the same thing. We're all this programmer on an island, and that community that we're trying to bring together. It's like, hey, I can connect with these people. They can connect with us. We can help each other. And that's been my biggest takeaway, is seeing how this programming network has been growing, and our community building is great.
So one of the things that I was really big on when I reached out to you and when we first started doing this is that I wanted it to be comfortable. I wanted there to be no ulterior motive. I think that I wanted there to be no competitiveness, no threat, and I hope that's been conveyed very well. I wasn't looking to do this to for self-interest or to gain business. In fact, I rarely talk about my business and my company, but more so just talk about how can we create awareness and how can we educate, and hopefully that will come back and reflect on us. But I think what we're after is really bringing to light the importance of this profession, and trying to get others to give it some more respect, or try to provide a little bit more clarity behind what goes into what we do.
Oh, I agree, and I agree. We've been very open, very friendly, I think, with each other, and even with our listeners and the feedback we've gotten. Nobody here is selling, or we're trying to build and share, and that's one thing with me coming from higher ed. We're all about sharing, and yeah, the schools may be competitors, but where I still consider anyone in higher ed a colleague. And we work together and help each other, and that's what we're doing here with this too. Is we're not competing, we're all helping each other, building this community.
A- and I think that's the way developers work in the real world, because there's a lot of the people sharing their code and contributing to open source and being able to provide answers to problems or questions. And I think a lot of mainstream developers find how to do something that they're struggling with through Googling it. I can't imagine what the software development world would be like without the Google tool, quite honestly, because that's usually where a lot of solutions are found. But unfortunately, the AV industry, it doesn't have those type of resources. I think that a lot of programmers have this knowledge in their head, and we need to figure out how to share it more so that we can provide benefit to each other, and expand perspectives and horizons, and different ways of doing things, maybe the things that somebody wouldn't have experienced before or thought of or needed to do. It's that I think is where a lot of the motivation for this for me comes from.
Oh, 100%. Even for me, like, I am with you. Like, I use Google a lot when I'm doing my regular like Raspberry Pi project and working on side project with that, or my C# program. But then if I run into a problem with AV program and you type that into Google, you don't get many results. And so it makes you feel more like a programmer on an island. Like, all right, I'm stuck here and I have no help. And where is that resource for us AV programmers? And they're out there. We mentioned them a couple times, but how are they used? And are they used more for someone to sell you stuff, or are they used more for helping each other? Um, that's where I think we're coming in, is we're more helping each other and helping our listeners, I hope. Um, from the feedback we're getting, I feel we are. And like I said, I'm open to sharing what I can with people and helping where I can. And I'm sure you're the same way, Steve. So I definitely think we as AV programmers, and I meant we as a collective, we um, need to be more like software developers and get it out there into the ether and be able to help each other.
There's nothing that I think could come of this more and provide reward for me and you. I'm pretty sure I could speak for you on this, to be able to gain more traction with regard to having discussions behind some of these topics, finding feedback, making and also having listeners connect with each other, and try to create that community that we set out to do from the beginning, because there's a need for it, and there really isn't. We've talked a bit about training in the past on episodes. How do you get to be better if you're not able to learn from other people who are doing what you do? Because you can go to as many training classes as you want, but you're really not going to learn from the real world experience. And this is a great way to find a mentor, or have a accountability partner, or have somebody that you could trade off with, or even phone a friend when you're in a jam. I think that this hopefully Ask the Programmer can be the start of that. And I think that's one of the reasons why we called this what we did.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've already seen that on the higher ed Slack group that I run, um, which is not with programming, but like we do call on each other. There's been times where either I was stuck with something or even just troubleshooting something or another member on there, and we throw it on there and people jumped in to help each other. And program, we're doing that here. And hopefully this is a start of a good resource for AV programmers out there, and we can build off of that and continue to grow this community.
And I think one of the other things too, just to touch on, is that this is a great way too for programmers to share this. Hopefully they can feel confident enough to share this content with their boss or with others that they work with, to provide them with a little perspective of, hey, I told you that this is something, but here's some justification. I told you that troubleshooting is important, or I told you why programming takes a long time, or I told you about the value of certifications, and listen to these guys, and they this could be some good background, and it can bring some credibility maybe to those topics. If we look ahead, where do you see us when we have our 1 year anniversary? Do you have any either predictions or requests, or what can we can look forward to, and also give the audience something to look forward to?
I this is actually the second time this week I've been asked to look into the future. The first one was my class. It was like, where do you see yourself in 2 years? And now this, I think if COVID really teaches us anything, we don't know what the future
That
holds.
is so true.
But I want to put a request out there to all our listeners. Steve and I have mentioned that we want to be a resource. We want to build a resource, a community. Let us know what works for you guys. Like, is this podcast alone enough, or do we need to build a Discord or a Slack group or some other means that we can share information, or even a GitHub? I'm not very familiar with Git. I know of it. I've used it once in a while, but I'm sure we can, or a Reddit channel, whatever. Let us know what resource we can continue to provide you guys, that we can grow our community and build off of this, and not just be Steve and I here talking and hoping you guys are listening. Let us know.
That's a great idea. Quite honestly, I I really would like it if we can find, if everybody can share an episode that they feel most valuable, has benefited them, and get some others people listening, because the power of this is reaching more programmers, and there's so many more out there than our listeners. As much as we value the listeners and we're excited that our audience is growing, we know that there's many more people that we could reach. So I think what would be really a reward for us, and something that we would look to celebrate at the end of the year, is to double or triple our audience. And I think that starts with our listeners sharing their favorite episodes and getting more people to tune in. But I think what you said is really great, and it might be an interesting way to be able to have increased collaboration and build around the topics here. And it would be a good feeder for us to be able to see what's being talked about, and then bring those to future podcast shows, and also have guests potentially come on to speak with us. With that said, I've enjoyed this, and I hope that you have too. And I wanted to give you a couple of words if you wanted to reflect back, and then share with the audience how to reach out to you, get in touch and learn what you're up to.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And yes, I have really enjoyed this. I look forward to the nights we get together and talk, and especially about programming, because again, it goes back to that programmer on an island. Like at work, I'm the only one programming, so on our team, so I don't have that common person I can, you know, say, hey, I'm stuck on this, or even just have a conversation about programming with, because my coworker is not a programmer, and that's fine. I mean, it's great that he has his skills and I have mine, but again, I don't have that connection with someone at work that we can share and troubleshoot if we need to on programming. Um, so this has been great, and love connecting with everybody that's been reaching out. I am shocked that we've been doing this for 6 months and it time flew. But you guys can reach me at AV_James King on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. Don't use it much, but I'm there. I do write for the higher ed digital magazine, IT and AV column. And if anyone's down in Florida for Infocom, as of this recording, I'm still planning on going. I know situation keeps changing down there and other things changing, but I do plan on being down there. And if you're a listener and you're a programmer, let's connect.
Absolutely. I'll second that. And it's been a pleasure working with you. And it's been a lot of fun, quite honestly, for us to have these conversations because they happen so naturally. And it's been really a great way to expand our horizons a bit. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on social media at Steve Greenblatt. You can read some of my writing on AV Network. You can check out State of Control, which is another podcast that I'm involved with on AV Nation. And that's I do that with Rich Fregosa, and James has been on several times, and we talk about also different programming related topics. But as James said, Infocom is around the corner, and I also plan to be there. I'm actually teaching a session on programming versus configuration, as well as a couple session on hiring and retention, mentorship. But I hope to this will be James and I our first opportunity to be together in person, which will be a lot of fun. But come seek us out because we'd like to hear from you, and it would be really a thrill for us to get to meet some of the people that are listening, and you can really keep us inspired and charged up about doing this by sharing and commenting. So please continue. Thanks for listening for the last 6 months, and we look forward to continuing to serve you. With that said, that's what we have for today, and this has been Ask the Programmer.